Racism, if we understand it correctly, is institutionalized and systematic. So not an incident, it is a whole system that have been developed, designed, and packaged over many, many years because people had the political, the social, and economic power to oppress a whole group of people and dehumanize them and take away their ability to be humans with dignity.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Pathways to Peace, where we talk all things justice, reconciliation, and peace on the African continent and beyond. I am your host, Kezia Abrahams, and today we have a special guest, Mr. Edwin Cleophas, Managing Director of the Social Justice Agency. Mr. Edwin, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Hi, Kessia, and thank you for having me. And it's a pleasure to be here.
I think while we start off, why don't you just give a bit about the Social Justice Agency? You can just tell us a bit about what you do and why you came about.
Okay, the Social Justice Agency is a non-profit organization or company established just under 7 years ago, particularly looking at issues of social justice and particularly looking at the critical need for education empowerment for the youth in our schools. There's some programs that we do on the 4IR, critical thinking, and then using psychometrics for career development. And then on the other end, it's about communicating with people on difficult issues around racism, and issues of social justice. And so our job is to educate, but specifically from an anti-racism perspective, because in our country, we know that it's non-racialism. And so as an organization, our job is to educate people so that they have a better and a depth of understanding. So when they do come to conversations, they have informed opinions and not just opinions. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. And I think it's quite fitting for today's theme for the podcast. I see you are wearing an anti-racist hat. And obviously today's theme will be anti-racism. So from your perspective, what are some of the most persistent myths or misunderstandings about racism that still influences our society today?
Yeah, I think if I have to touch on maybe one or two, one of the big ones that white people consistently use in South Africa is reverse racism. So very often we hear that there is reverse racism in South Africa, where the concept behind that is this idea that white people are now the oppressed in this country. And then they follow that up with the concept of white people being unable to get jobs. They then go into BEE and all these things used against them. And yet, when we do look at the evidence, white people are not even rarely or barely touched by the economic struggles that black people face on a daily basis. And under the idea of racism and reverse racism particularly, if you show me where white people live that is oppressed by black people in a way where apartheid was used to dehumanize black people in this country, I will then agree with you that there is reverse racism. But because it doesn't exist, it is a myth and it doesn't hold any water in today's world. So that particularly is the one thing that has consistently been bothering us. I think we also have this idea with regards to can black people be racist? Now, the obvious answer for me is, and that I'm going to explain it because people don't always understand this. I always hold the position that black people cannot be racist. And the reason for that is very simply, racism, if we understand it correctly, is institutionalized and systematic. So it's not an incident. It is a whole system that have been developed, designed, and packaged over many, many years because people had the political, the social, and economic power to oppress a whole group of people and dehumanize them and take away their ability to be humans with dignity. Now, if in order for you to impose racism on a group of people, you need to have those three powers together, and you need to control the system so that you don't just make the rules, but you also enforce them. Now, the reason why black people cannot be racist is because simply black people has never had the political, economic, or social power at once and dominated another group in such a way that they dehumanize them. It's never happened. Therefore, what they are using when they say certain slurs to white people, that can be described as discrimination. It can be described as offensive, and it can be described as many other things, but it's definitely not racism. The other way around, when white people had all that, that's why we call them racist, because they had the ability to do all those things that we just said black people has never had. So those are two of the myths that I am going to dispel. One, reverse racism, and the second one, can black people be racist? Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Edwin, for your insights into the myths and misunderstandings around racism. For many people, I think there is this want to be non-racist, but you and other experts in the industry talk about being actively anti-racist. So what does it mean to move from non-racism to an anti-racism practice?
Yes. So, Kesia, when we initially, as a government, from the beginning, where we started with the Constitution, I think it was probably fine at that time to use non-racialism because it made sense in that moment, possibly for the leadership. However, non-racialism is also non-commitment. It is people coming together and using things like I don't see color. We are all equal. All humans are human beings and we all are the same. So those are the type of arguments that people make under non-racialism, but it's non-committal because at the end of the day, we have no way of understanding whether that person is committed to justice for all, dignity for all, or any form of that. But it's easy for people to use it as a defense. No, I don't see color. So non-racialism is equated to color blindness, right? But when you move towards an anti-racist perspective, you acknowledge that racism is a system and it's institutionalized. And when you acknowledge that and you understand it, then you also know that the work that goes into that is to show up daily to fight against the system so that we can dismantle the system and in the end share the spoils or the resources or everything that comes with living in South Africa and in Africa and the benefits of that, because under colonialism and apartheid, all of that was removed from us, right? And so it's also disingenuous, especially when we say non-racialism, it's disingenuous specifically from white people, because while they then take up the position of I don't see color and no, we are all equal and all of that. At the same time, while that negatively impacts black people because they don't gain anything from that because the system is not exposed, white people directly then gain from that system, because if you don't address the system and you don't address the institutionalization of the system that was built to benefit white people, then the benefits of that system continue to lay and stay with white people. And so therefore, we cannot be non-racialism. We have to be anti-racist. And for most white people that have joined the fight and is part of the anti-racist movement, they are all aware of the fact that you will never be done being anti-racist. It's a continuous and consistent, deliberate job that you have to do every single day of your life. And committing to that process shows us just how complex this system is and how many more hands we need on deck in order to undo the system. And so from that perspective and on the continuum of anti-racist to extreme racism, white people then lay on that continuum, and based on our interpretation as black people looking at them, we determine basically who fits the description of going into anti-racist and who is still wallowing in the middle with their liberal ideas, as Pico put it, of white people that enjoy all the benefits of the system but claim to be allies that fights with us against racism.
Thank you for that perspective. I think I'm learning so much from just our discussion. And one of the key things I think that was coming to mind when you were explaining non-racism and also giving examples is that in certain cases, it can seem, while trying to be inclusionary, it could actually in turn be exclusionary. And as you mentioned, with anti-racism, it's about focusing on the institutions that have caused or oppressed Black people.
Yeah.
And I think in South Africa, and I think on the African continent and the world, we obviously have made the steps towards anti-racism, but we're still not there. There's still a lot that needs to be done. So I want to kind of ask you if you could give individuals, communities, or institutions one practical step to dismantle racism in their everyday context, what would it be?
Well, for me, it's not even difficult because we've never in South Africa particularly had a time when we were attempting to undo racism or the system of apartheid. We've never tried. The government has not really implemented programs to undo the divide that has been caused by apartheid and colonialism. And so once we start doing that genuinely, it will definitely reflect that. And I've seen it in a few spaces where people have done it. And what I'm referring to is build genuine relationships across racial divide. And what that looks like is when your braais become diverse, not your workplace. Because at the workplace, that's a fallacy. We are forced to be there because we earn a salary, and we are forced to be nice because there's rules in place. If I'm not nice, then they can fire me. But at home, you become your disgusting self, or your pleasant self, or your good smelling self, or your stupid self, or whatever else you become at home. That's your comfort. And within your comforts, if the people that don't look like you do not enter that space and don't know about your stupid self or your disgusting self or your pleasant self, if they don't know that part of you, it means that you have never genuinely engaged with people in order to cross that divide and integrate so that we are a transformed nation. And until such time that we build relationships of depth, of a genuine attempt to know people, to know how they live, their ancestry, their background, their history, their culture, what makes us diverse, until such time that we genuinely commit our lives and time to understanding that, to owning that, and to integrate and live and work and go to school and varsity and weekends together. Until we do that genuinely, we will never truly get rid of racism or be a united society.
Well, thank you so much for that. As you were speaking, I could actually picture that beautiful image in my head of everyone coming together for braai, bringing all different types of food. And it makes me very excited. I couldn't help but have a smile on my face. But thank you so much, Edwin, for joining us today. I know you've been quite busy lately as the Social Justice Agency is prepping for your upcoming summit in October. So I was wondering if you could give us a bit more information about what that exactly is.
Absolutely. It's very exciting. The summit is happening from the 3rd to the 5th of October in Stellenbosch at the Protea Hotel in Technopark. This event is so significant. The last time we had a similar event in South Africa was in 2001, where the anti-racism conference happened in Durban, and that summit or that conference, the output was the Durban Declaration, where it basically said the outputs from that conference was that we need to build a more inclusive society We need to create systems of justice, dignity, and things like that. We need to deal with xenophobia. We need to deal with racism, etc., etc. Good education, good healthcare, etc. And basically, since 2001 up until today, 25 years later, we have failed. And now we are standing at the door again, and we are hosting again. And this time, the Social Justice Agency, with all the amazing, powerful speakers that's going to be there, is going to make sure that this time we're going to follow through. There's going to be a clear understanding of everybody's role and what we're going to do to achieve the justice that we desire and the dignity that we need for all our people across the world. And that is going to be so much different because we are deliberate, intentional, and we're going with a plan. And I think that being said, this conference is the theme around it is truth toll. And trauma, and we're going to deal with all of those on the floor. But yeah, the Global Anti-Racism Summit, guest 2025, you don't want to miss it. I mean, this is going to be the one.
You definitely don't. I think it's quite shocking that there hasn't been one in the last 24 years because racism is still prevalent in our society, but the chains might actually look a bit different. So I feel like the summit is coming at such a fitting time. And if anyone would like more information regarding it, where can they go?
Well, all the information is on our website, which is www.thesocialjusticeagency.org. And all your details is there. It's under the Triple T Summit. And yeah, people can reach out, whether it's to be part of it in whatever form or way. This is going to be very artistic. We're going to have cultural events. We're going to have poetry, music, art, graffiti, music, musicians. We're going to have a bunch of things. And that's all besides all the amazing speakers that's going to help us to better understand how we put together the blueprint to finally put a dent in the racist movement.
Well, thank you so much for that. And thank you for giving us some of your time. And thank you for all those that were able to join us today for another episode of Pathways to Peace. Make sure to head over to the Social Justice Agency's website and also follow us on social media. Thank you.